Hi, my name is Robbie Elliott, and this is my honors capstone. I did a project where I was looking at the safety of advanced driver assistance systems in automobiles as we head towards an autonomous future. So here's kind of an overview. I'll go into some background, then some technology and certification stuff, a current state value creation options, and then sort of our recommendations. So background, here's the problem. So the automotive aftermarket is struggling to service and safely return ADAS equipped systems to the road. And many of these shops can't afford to, service these equipment properly. But as cars continue to develop and become more complex, um, they're going to have more of these systems. And thus, there's a tremendous opportunity for the aftermarket shops to service these. So for this project, I worked with Professor Jeff DeGraff out of the business school, and he kind of runs the Innovatrium, which he founded based on this competing values framework, which is the framework I use to kind of analyze my project. So there's 4 different quadrants, and each quadrant is a kind of lens that you can look at problems through based on what you're trying to achieve. And basically, these values that are on opposite sides of each other can be used in conflict to basically create a new innovative solution that most likely wouldn't have occurred before. That is a very general oversimplification of this really cool business tool, but we'll get more onto the engineering stuff. So looking at technology, so what are ADAS systems? It's basically any system on your car that that is for safety purposes. So you think adaptive cruise control, think blind spot assist, rear collision warning, all that stuff. And obviously, as cars become, head towards autonomy, they're going to have more and more of these systems. Now, because these systems are very software based, it kind of requires a different sort of repair and replacement structure than like an oil change does. So, for example, calibrating these systems would require some sort of super complex setup that you see in the picture here. Then we'll look at current state. So first, we want to look at our addressable market. So here is kind of a part failure analysis. So you can see that a lot of the parts fail within the first year, but then generally just kind of deteriorate over time. This trend follows for both mechanical and electrical parts, but electrical parts don't really wear out as much over time because they're not getting cyclical or wear and tear use like most mechanical parts. So this is a generally good assumption that we use. Then we use that to get all this numbers and data stuff, just kind of to point out a few figures. So we're looking at 2020 and then projected values into 2025 and 2030. And basically what we came up with is that the total value of crashes in 2030 is going to be worth over $1 billion, which is a lot of money. So there's a very significant opportunity here for the aftermarket to help with this. Then we did some pricing research where we looked at the cost to buy parts through OEMs, so all your auto manufacturers, and then compare that to buying the same electrical parts on like Advanced AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts and AutoZone. So you can see here, for example, that there's basically a 75% savings by buying a Nissan part on average through like AutoZone. And we expect these trends to hopefully hold up for when AutoZone would carry ADAS systems, but right now, basically your only choice is to buy them through the OEMs. Then we did some shop survey stuff. So we called over 450, my team and I called over 450 repair and collision shops, and we found that less than 15% of them service ADAS systems, which is really low. Most of the reasons for this is just too expensive, and they're not seeing enough cars at this point to justify that expense. To put some of our survey data results into more numerical values, so we can see that there's a larger percentage of shops that service that do ADAS service or collision shops, but only about 43% of shops that service them have dedicated bays, which we saw in one of the earlier slides. So not a lot of space to do this stuff. And then as a result, the large majority of shops that aren't servicing these systems are just sending them to the dealer. As more and more cars have these systems, there's really no feasible way where the dealership network can handle the volume of cars that would need these replacements. So it's going to have to kind of rely on the aftermarket. Then the last current state analysis we did was consumer behavior, which was really interesting and kind of scary. So we found that 45% of ADAS systems have been deactivated by the customer. Some of these reasons are, perceived not to work, not needed or not used, or they're in some way distracting. And what's scary about this is that on average, cars that have ADAS systems installed in them, the drivers drive less safe. So not only are you having cars with safety components not being used, but those same cars are actually driving less safe, which is causing the expenses to be extremely expensive. So then we'll kind of tie back in using the competing values framework into some value creation options. So we kind of highlighted three main targets that we wanted to go after. The first one was cost of ADAS repairs. The second was competency of the technicians. And third was the consumer usage. So first, we'll look at kind of target one from two different perspectives. First is the compete perspective, which is all about speed and short-term focus. So if we're trying to quickly reduce our costs of repairs, we really want the client to basically partner with somebody who has experience in creating parts or servicing parts, so that they can reduce those prices. Then kind of oppositely of that, if we were looking for more of a collaboration sustainable approach, we definitely want the client to basically collaborate with a bunch of different aftermarket shops and part creators, and sort of create a sustainable, long-term, lower-cost solution to servicing these cars. Then our second target was all about kind of the competency of the service technicians. And we wanted to view this more of from a creative approach, because the old ways that technicians are learning the trade will no longer work given the rapid change of technology and the wide variety of technology they're going to be able to see. So we kind of want to look at how we can leverage technology as a way to basically help them succeed in the aftermarket. Then third was consumer usage of ADAS systems. So here we wanted to take more of a control route, because we really want people to not be able to deactivate the systems, because we don't know the long-term impacts of, like, one system turned off, maybe they can't talk to other systems, so on and so forth. So we really want to try to enforce that these systems stay on. So kind of combining this all together, what are some recommendations that we have for our client? So the first recommendation is sort of this pursuit of a regulatory framework, so we can make sure those systems are operational and not deactivated. The second recommendation is that we basically protect vehicles via inspection. So in Europe, inspecting vehicles is mandated, like almost on a yearly basis, I believe, but we don't have anything like that in the US. Now, if you look at like your headlight, you'll be able to tell when that goes out, but with a lot of these ADAS systems, us as consumers won't be able to tell when they're not working. So it's going to be pretty important that we get these systems inspected, and that's why we're kind of recommending that this is mandated. And that leads nicely into our third recommendation, which is that technicians, we need to certify them to service this stuff, because there's no way the dealership network can handle inspections of all these new ADAS vehicles. So we need to make sure that technicians in the aftermarket are knowledgeable and capable to basically do this sort of stuff. So thanks for watching. Go Blue. And as you can kind of tell, this project was structured with the Innovatrium and working with that consulting firm. So my focus area was in entrepreneurship, and basically I was able to explore that by doing sort of this entrepreneurial consulting type project. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and Go Blue.